Good afternoon and welcome everyone on today's last session for this stage. This session is on how a large Australian retailer modernized their SAP landscape with SAP Rise on AWS. This session is a level 200 session and you will learn more on how large Australian retailer is using SAP Rise on AWS. It's my pleasure to welcome to the stage David Knight, SAP Specialist, Solution Architect. Please give him a big round of applause.
Thank you. Hi everyone. Congratulations in making it to the end of Summit. This is the last session and day 2, and you've done amazing to make it this far through. So, how many people here have SAP workloads? How many people here are trying to, great show of hands, it's awesome. How many people here are trying to work out how to modernize these workloads and work out how to navigate the SAP Rise story? So, today I wanted to share some lessons learned and the story of a large Australian retailer who's migrated on to SAP Rise. So I'm David Knight, I'm a specialist solution architect with AWS, and I work with customers and help them modernize and migrate SAP workloads. So today we'll be talking about a large Australian retailer. We'll start by talking a little bit about their landscape, how it was prior to migration, their legacy systems. We'll talk about that problem statement and how they've sort of solved that problem by migrating to SAP Rise. We'll talk a little bit about why AWS was involved in that journey, and we'll also talk about some lessons learned from that journey, which is probably what everybody's here to learn here. I'll try to do this over the next 20 minutes, but I'll try to keep it shorter because I know I'm between everybody and home and family and flights and the rest of it. So let's get stuck in. A little bit more about me. So as a solution architect with AWS, I have the privilege of working with customers all the way from the very start of their journey when they're going, I've got an SAP system and what do I do with it? And help them trying to unpack what that problem is, all the way through to customers that already run SAP solutions with us and helping them dive into support problems, look at operations and improvements, as well as innovation. It's a great role that keeps me busy. And prior to this, I've spent 20 years working in the SAP ecosystem, mainly around implementing and designing large SAP solutions. So let's talk a little bit about the challenge. So our large retail customer actually had 2 separate brands, and these 2 separate brands were operating independently with different back-end systems and different back-end processes for finance. And what they decided to do is they decided they wanted to merge the back-end finance processes for both of these organizations, and they set a really aggressive 8-month deadline to merge all of their operations. One of the brands was running an ECC system, an SAP ECC system that was quite large at 6 terabytes, and the other of the brands was running an S4HANA system of 1 terabyte. So you can imagine the complexity that they required to combine both of these 2 systems together. So how did they go about trying to solve this problem, and where did they go? I guess while there's probably a lot of SAP people in this room, I sort of understand that we're here at an AWS event, so maybe let's just start by explaining what SAP Rise is, just to make sure that we level set. So for those who aren't aware, SAP Rise is a cloud offering from SAP. It takes SAP software licenses, it takes infrastructure, it takes support, and it bundles it up into a single package. So this is distinct and different from how SAP used to do software such as ECC, where they'd sell software licenses and the customer would have to go and implement it themselves, or with a good partner. So what the large retail customer here did was they took their 2 systems and they harmonized them together into one S4HANA system under the Rise platform. And this wasn't just a technical upgrade. This wasn't just a technical migration. This is a harmonization of back-end business process and business process change over this project. And they managed to accomplish this all in 8 months. So let's start by talking about why they chose AWS for their Rise system and why they were looking for us for some support throughout this process. So to start with, they looked at us and looked at our proven reliability, our resiliency, and our performance that was built up by being the most experienced cloud provider. And that really drove their underlying commitment to make sure that they had the reassurance required to meet their non-functional requirements for their RISE solution. So they wanted to make sure that their system was always up, that it was always secure, and that they had the performance that they required. But it wasn't just, building great infrastructure, building great cloud that was a key decider here. It was also the culture of innovation that we bring, our people, and that's people like myself as a solution architect, but our broader team. We have technical account managers, we have customer success managers, and we have an ecosystem of people that come in and help drive success of our customers. So this can be through architecture workshops, this can be through innovation days, working backwards processes, prototyping, and all sorts of support that you get just by being an AWS customer. And lastly, they chose us because of our strong partner ecosystem. And this partner ecosystem isn't just strong with the system integrators, it's also with SAP themselves. So SAP has awarded AWS the hyperscaler of the year for APJ for the last 2 years in a row. And that really just goes down to show our commitment and how we work together with SAP to really drive great customer outcomes for SAP RISE. So they picked AWS and they brought us in, and they brought us in early. So what did that look like? What did their customer journey look like, and how did they get there? So as I said before, it was an 8-month implementation program. It's 8 months from inception through to business go live. It was a 5-month project to go from the start all the way through to technical go live. They started off with a business case, building up a business case, and they brought us in to help them assess and bring in some market intelligence around how to build that business case. We assisted them with sizing and migration, connectivity designs, and then help with assurance during the implementation. So let's get into a few more of the lessons learned of this process as we dive further into the journey. So as we started off with the business case, the retailer here really set out 2 goals for the program of work. They really wanted to make sure that there was no degradation of user experience. That is, the user experience in every single process and every single touch point either had to improve or stay the same, and they also wanted to move towards a clean core. So that meant minimal or no customization. So they were looking to come back to standard as part of that process. So they started planning this through in the business case. And as we got early into the sizing conversation, we helped them look at things such as technical cleanup of the legacy systems and technical archiving, as well as business archiving, to really reduce that data volume. If you reduce your data volume early, prior to migration, you can feed that into your sizing, and that'll help you reduce your overall RISE costs for the overall period of your program of work. So it's really important to sit there and spend a bit of time early to get things right, to really maximize your cost savings and minimize that cost profile over the longer term of the program. Secondly, I mean, as a lot of you are probably aware, there's 3 different ways to migrate solutions into SAP RISE. Most customers look at either greenfield migrations, that is a brand new implementation, brownfield migrations, which is where they bring over a legacy system and upgrade it and triage that, or a bluefield migration, or what can be sometimes called a selective data transformation, which is a bit of a hybrid approach where you bring over a bunch of data, bring over some business processes, and optimize others. And you use a bunch of tooling that's out in market around achieving that bluefield migration. So one of the key lessons learned here was to make sure that you understand what that tooling is and what the requirements of that tooling is up front. Some tooling for bluefield migrations requires additional infrastructure. say to store multiple copies of data while you run through transformations. And if you have all of those infrastructure requirements up front, it can really help you plan that RISE bill of materials and outcome right the first time. It saves you having to go through a change request process later on in the process. So the the advice that we have is make sure that you've done your cleanup on any existing environments. Make sure you're looking at your data to shrink that down as much as you can. And then as well as making sure that you've got key decisions around tooling and migration approach upfront done prior to going in and starting your implementation program. The last sort of comment here is we come in and often help with customers looking at their RISE bill of materials, and we help with elements such as sizing, such as understanding your non-functional requirements. And this is just something that we've done with this retailer and with many customers around to help make sure and provide some independent advice that you're doing the right thing, you're approaching it in accordance to market trends. So we've started this journey. We've got through the business case got approved, we've run through some sizing, and now we've got some really aggressive timeframes to sit there and run through the implementation. So one thing that the large retailer did is even prior to getting sign-off on the RISE program of work, we were in there helping them build out a connectivity design. And the goal of this was we had a connectivity design documented, approved by their architecture assurance board. So as soon as they signed the contracts, got the system integrators in there, started this program of work, the systems were ready, the connectivity was there, and they could hit the ground running. And this really helped them accelerate and hit these aggressive timeframes that they're meeting. And this is something we're happy to do and help and assist with all of our customers. From here, there was a 5-month implementation until we get to technical go live. After this technical go live, there was a big focus on trial migrations and dress rehearsals. And this was really focused on getting the cutover window down to minimize any business impact through that cutover period. A lot of this was focused on optimizing the document splitting process. So as part of the migration of the old legacy ECC system, there had to be a migration to the new GL to get that into the S/4HANA system. That required a lot of document splitting to be performed, and that was probably the long peg in the tent, to use that expression. A lot of the migration itself was focused on both integration and data migration. So data migration, our retail customers set out with a goal of no discrepancies. So they really drove the data migration process down to a point where there was 0 discrepancies with with all processes before they went live. And then they also had over 200 interfaces to triage and migrate as part of this process. And they managed to achieve all of this within 5 months for technical go live, and then another 3 to get them to business go live. So an 8-month end-to-end program of work here. And once again, just coming from an AWS perspective, we sat there with them during architecture reviews. We contributed to their architecture programs. We sat on steering committees and helped them with independent advice and advisory around decision making throughout the program, and just help them make sure they had the confidence that they're making the right decisions and that they're accelerating on what's quite an aggressive time frame quickly. And this went through relatively smoothly and unscathed. So what's next? So a few sort of questions. It's almost time for another S/4HANA upgrade for our friends at the retailer, and they're exploring one of our developer productivity tools called Amazon Q to help them accelerate that S/4HANA upgrade process. So Amazon Q looks at some of the processes and looks at some of the code around ABAP and helps with the ABAP remediation as part of the upgrade program. So we're exploring that at the moment with them, and that's something that we're keen to work on in the future. The other element that they're really focusing on is, because there's been a focus on moving towards a clean core, because there's that minimal customization as part of the migration process. They're now looking to build innovation extensions around the solution. So we're leaning in and supporting with our AWS SAP joint reference architecture. And what this is, it's an architecture that wraps around SAP BTP, that's SAP's business technology platform, and AWS, and helps guide how to innovate and build services that span both, and make sure that we're getting the right outcome and architecturally optimized solutions for our customers. So I think now you've heard quite a bit from how our retail customer has migrated and moved through to SAP Rise, where I've shared quite a few lessons learnt from the story. But there's a lot of other ways that AWS can help customers with SAP Rise on the way through. So we've got this list here of different offerings that we have that we can come in and provide, and these are provided at no cost for most of the architectural offerings around mobilize and migrate and modernize. And we can come in and support customers with their SAP journey. Now, we also do a lot of other support that sits outside of this. So I really encourage you, if you've got an SAP solution, just to reach out to AWS. Let's have a conversation. Reach out to myself, and let's have a conversation about where you are and how we can help. We find early engagement, we can really help accelerate and lower costs of those Rise migrations out there in market. So look, without that, I don't want to take too much of your time today. I want to thank you all for coming along and making it all the way to the end of AWS Summit Sydney. It's been a great event. I hope you've enjoyed it all today. And if you can take a few minutes to scan the survey and complete the session survey and provide some feedback. We're very keen to hear your feedback, and feel free to reach out. My contact details are up there on the screen. Thank you very much, and hope to talk to you all soon.